Today, it's time to take a look at the dark side of humanity, but things aren't always as they appear. This is Twisted Dark, Volume 1.
I'm a geek. I use thought bubbles when I speak. I'm a freak because she's received that from me. I'm unique. There is only one of me. I'm complete, so I really don't care what you think of me. I'm a geek.
Hello there, Comic Clan, and welcome to Comics in the Cross, that of rare streamers and YouTubers that you've never heard of. I'm Cross, and today we are looking at Twisted Dark Volume 1 from Twisted Comics. But before we get started, if you are enjoying the content from Comics in the Cross, please be sure to go and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any future videos from us here. Also, if you can hit that like button as well, it really does help us out. Thank you so much. Twisted Comics are a UK-based publishing company starting as a hobby from creator and main writer Neil Gibson. Twisted Comics has grown into a full-fledged company with the goal of being get everyone hooked on comics. Although they've expanded into other genres, most of their catalogue are horror comics, with their horror anthology series Twisted Dark being the flagship title for the company, which at the time of recording has 8 volumes available. Twisted Dark is described as a series of interconnected psychological thrillers, perfect for fans of twist endings and comics that reveal more on the second reading. Each story stands alone, but the more you read, the more connections you see between the characters. If you're a fan of horror thriller content such as Black Mirror, Twilight Zone, or even the original Grimm's fairy tales, then this might be the comic series for you. Twisted Dark Volume 1 is written by Neil Gibson and is an anthology of 11 mostly black and white short stories from various artists contributing their work, including Atula, Siriwardane, Caspar, Wijngaard, Heru, Prasetyo, Djalal, Wijngaard, Mercer, and Dan West. For specifics on which artist drew which story, I have listed them all down below with each creative team for each story in the book, so please go and check that out. Although these are short stories, I am still not going to be able to cover all 11 stories in today's video, but I will share some of my favourites or some that stood out to me. And if you like what you hear, then think about picking it up for yourself. I'll leave a link to the first volume down below as well. Also, this is your spoiler warning, as I will be spoiling the twists for the stories that I do discuss, so if you want to read them unspoiled and get those twists all on your own, then please check out Twisted Dark Volume 1 on your own and then come back to hear my thoughts after. Also, massive trigger warning for all the content that you're seeing on your screen right now. YouTube doesn't like me verbalizing the content, but I want to make you aware that if you need to avoid these topics being discussed, then that is absolutely fine. And we'll see you all in the next video. But when I say we're covering the darker side of humanity, it really does start to go into those subjects in these stories. Alright, with all of that said, it is time to delve into the dark world of humanity with Twisted Dark Volume 1. I want to begin with the first story in the anthology. It wasn't one of my favourites, but I feel like I want to share this just to give you the same intro to Twisted Dark that I got. And that first story is called Suicide. Each story opens with a blurb, quote, or info for the story, and this one begins talking about the anonymity that is allowed by online chat rooms. There's a chance to say whatever you want with no fear, guilt, or shame, and that you would never say to other people in your real life, or even just tell people how you truly feel. We meet Becky D157, who is in one of these chat rooms, and we see her building up the courage to share her feelings, that she thinks about killing herself and that she's been unhappy with her weight and appearance for a while. She begins to list her flaws and states that she can't take it and just wants everything to stop. Although people say things get better, she says that people also wish to go back to being kids with no responsibilities. Becky says that she's heard telling people you want to kill yourself as a cry for attention, but she doesn't want attention. In fact, she just wants to be left alone. But the thing that she is most worried about is that she is 10 years old. This is a heck of an opening story. Twisted Dark begins with a dark, unnerving and unsettling story. Suicidal thoughts are a very real thing that people deal with in their lives, but this story was like a punch to the gut, as after everything you learn, the words are coming from a 10-year-old girl. As the father of children that are not too dissimilar in age to Becky, I can't even begin to imagine my kids being so broken and hopeless that they would think about ending their lives. It was clear that Twisted Dark wasn't going to hold back from the darker stories that human beings deal with, and that this book wasn't going to be a simple, easy read either. I do want to say for anyone watching, if you or anyone you know are dealing with suicidal thoughts, thoughts of hopelessness and worthlessness, that I'm going to put a link down below for resources and people to talk with. I don't know what you're going through, but there are real people that want to help you, people that are far more qualified than a person talking about comic books on YouTube. And so please, if that is something you are dealing with, please reach out to them. The second story I want to talk about is called Routine. And along with the first story are the two that I receive from Twisted Dark as I signed up for their newsletter. They send 2 stories for free so that you can see if you want to pick up more. Routine follows Asbjorn and Cole, a father and son living in a remote cabin in the forests of Norway. Asbjorn reflects on life with his son. He makes them breakfast and describes that Cole, on days he didn't have school, would take their dog and go hunting in the surrounding woods. He describes that he once held back his shotgun from his son, but now lets him take it for his hunts. Cole is excited to hunt as it's a beautiful sunny day with no clouds in the sky, and Asbjorn tells him to be back home for lunch. As the sun goes, he thinks back on their relationship. He used to be a drunk and was abusive towards his son, even causing his son to run away from home the last time that it happened. He feels shame for the father he was and the pain that he caused, but is glad that they're in a good place now and that things are better. As the day goes on, Cole doesn't come home for lunch. Asbjorn gives him some time. It gets on late though, and he starts to really worry and heads into the woods to make sure that Cole's okay. As he goes deeper, he finds Cole, who says he was unable to find anything for dinner and he didn't want to come home empty-handed. His father hugs him and they walk home hand in hand with their dog in tow. But as Asbjorn walks, the image changes and we realise he's living in a hallucinatory state. There is no dog, there is no son, and he is not holding his shotgun. That when Cole ran away from home, he ended his life. And that hallucinatory guilt and shame, Asbjorn has been living the same routine every day for the last 6 years. I absolutely loved this story. It was a sort of twist ending that sucker punches you and has you guessing as what could be coming at the end. As you look back through the story a second time, it changes how you perceive everything that's going on. It's a great setup with a great dark payoff. Your heart also breaks for Asbjorn, as you know he was a bad guy that drank and abused his son, but you also feel the weight of the 6-year burden of what he caused his son to do. And that he would sacrifice everything just to take that moment back. But then again, maybe you feel like he deserves to live in his own personal hell, reliving the life he wished he could have, and carry that shame. We're going to jump a little bit ahead to story 4, titled Windowpayne. In the story we meet Windowpayne, a rich recluse that used his family's wealth to invent Windowpayne and become one of the youngest billionaires in America. Windowpaynes are customizable windows that replace entire walls in a room. They're load-bearing, and as well as letting in a lot more light, they absorb solar energy, provide insulation, and you can program them to show you any picture or video of your choosing, so that the view out of your window doesn't need to be the view you see, as well as various other linked functions. Rodrigo was never a fan of the fame and kept himself out of the limelight, but today he is giving an interview for the first time due to his promotion of Windowpayne and his half-price slashing of sales, as he wants everyone to be able to have Windowpaynes installed. However, Rodrigo stated that there was to be no audience, no personal questions, and that he could have final say on the edit of the interview. The interview begins well, with the host talking about some of the new innovations for Windowpayne, as there is now a club with Windowpaynes installed on all the walls and the floor to enhance the atmosphere, and also in planes, as installing them in cockpits was able to aid the visibility of pilots on their landings. The host also asks about some fires that have happened overseas in homes that had Windowpaynes installed, but Rodrigo assures that proper safety protocols were not followed and that this problem has been rectified. The host, however, begins to steer the conversation to more personal questions, asking if his interest in investing in the fire department is linked to the burn scar on his face, to which Rodrigo ends the interview and leaves. But upon returning home, we learn that Rodrigo relaxes in front of the Windowpayne installed in his room, but the video always playing is a wall of fire. As he watches the flames, he thinks about how he has access to the controls of every Windowpayne installed in the world, and that if he deactivates the cooling system, that a standard house can be engulfed in flames within an hour. And he thinks how once everyone has a Windowpayne, he can exterminate all of the vermin and burn them all. This was a great twist, as I felt that you never quite knew what direction the twist was going. It felt too simple, and the stories of the bizarre and lavish things the rich do start the gears turning on what Rodrigo was doing, but he's using his invention to cause fires and burn everyone. That was not where I seen it going, and I absolutely loved the writing with this one. I also won't say where, but the name Windowpayne does appear in another story in this volume, and seeing this connect with him being somewhere else in the book was a really cool moment to see happening before my eyes. Just like it mentioned earlier in what happens in Twisted Dark, you see the stories starting to overlap and you get more out of it on a second reading. The final story that I'm going to talk about is story 5, called The Game. For this story, we're going to the River Creek Psychiatric Hospital, and we are with a new doctor to the facility. As he experiences rounds for the first time and gets to meet the patients, the last room is of a patient just known as Suamis. No first name, he experiences paranoia and outbursts. Apparently, he completely freaks out in a group of people, but when he is in one-on-one situations, he's completely calm and rational, able to talk and converse, and shows no major issues at all. As they see this in practice, the new doctor asks if he can have the room to himself so that he can speak with the patient and try and have a conversation with him, and as soon as the others leave, he becomes calm and collected. Soam states that he gets tired of acting and asks the new doctor if he was brought in because they thought a good-looking alpha male doctor would help boost the ratings. As our conversation goes on, we learn that Soam believes that he is in competition with a number of other contestants to win $10 million. At the start, they had to choose a condition to portray and keep acting. If they were found out to not have that condition, they would be eliminated. He chose to portray paranoia, as he believed it would be easier to portray than a phobia that he doesn't have, and that the experience would actually help his portrayal get better. He tells the Doctor that not everyone is a contestant, but he has definitely noticed a few that are acting. The Doctor delves further, learning he's okay to talk to doctors one-on-one as it's a break for them to be real, kind of like the diary room in Big Brother. And it must be a show with all the cameras that are watching them, even believing hidden cameras to be in his room. The Doctor tries to break through to him, advising that the cameras are standard in all psychiatric hospitals, and asks him how long he's been doing this, and how long he's willing to do this. Months? Years? To try and win a game? Is it really worth it? We do see Soams start to wonder and think, but eventually snaps back and has his resolve steeled, and that the Doctor pushing him so hard likely meant that he was one of the last few surviving contestants, and they were trying to get him to quit, but he is determined. The Doctor leaves and Soams thinks about the people watching him on the hidden camera and what they are saying about him. But now if he could only remember his wife and kids' names. This story is absolutely my kind of story. I adore psychological stories that play with your perception like this. I'm usually not a fan of an ending that leaves it up to the audience to decide what they want, as I believe in a lot of cases it's a cop-out of actually writing a proper ending while trying to look artsy. And honestly, it's just such an overdone trope at this point. But in the game, due to the nature of the story, I believe that the ambiguous ending actually enhances the story. Soams is in a mental health hospital. By its nature, a lot of the patients there deal with blurred lines between fantasy and reality, as is the case for Soams himself. And this ending leaves you with that same feeling of no clean-cut answer, and being fully uncertain what choice is truly reality. Both are viable options, and potentially real, and there are consequences for him, depending on which choice he eventually makes and what choice is inevitably revealed as reality. As I said, this is only a handful of the amazing stories that take place in Twisted Dark Volume 1, let alone the full series of 8 volumes. The writing and the art kept so simplistic, but are absolutely engaging. Gibson doesn't overload the stories with a lot of dialogue or text to read, and makes sure that there is no wasted words in any of his stories. And the team of artists on this book utilise such an amazing and unique art style for these stories. The images are not over detailed and over complicated, but yet aren't lacking. Panels are allowed to experience the negative space between them, and some of them even utilise the darkness to objectively help tell the story. The pages allow you to experience something that a good horror thriller absolutely needs, which is breathing room. The lack of dialogue, along with there being possibly 1 or 2 panels on some pages that are kept at about average size and aren't expanded to try and fill the whole page, it allows you to experience nothing. I feel like this is the comic equivalent of letting the tension build, and letting the atmosphere and tension and uneasy feeling just naturally build up, as you know that at any point the reveal will happen and catch you off by surprise. I would highly recommend checking out the first volume for yourself, and I'll leave that link for the store page down below as I stated. But for me, that is it for today. Have you read any Twisted Dark or any other Twisted comics from their catalogue? If so, what did you think of the series? What other comics would you like us to cover here on the channel? Please leave answers to all of these down below in the comments. We would love to hear from you. And if you're interested, make sure to go and check out our Patreon, where you can get early access to our reviews and our Indie Comic Book Club a whole month before it releases here on YouTube, as well as exclusive content specifically for supporters over there. Also, if you're interested, we also have a gaming channel where we do reviews for the latest and best in video games and tabletop gaming, so why not check out those links down below and go and see them for yourself. But that's it for me. You take care, and remember, it is a good week to be a geek. Peace.